Free TV, in association with getoutofdebtfree.org.
Failed.
Oh, I'm sorry, I dozed off.
Where's the agent gone?
Which agent?
Our agent that looks after us.
Quiet lady?
Yeah.
Back seat. Because of security? Because of the courthouse? Do you know that the G4S was there yesterday?
Yeah, I did notice that.
And I think they actually hurt a guy.
They did. The security...
Private security.
Yeah, they pushed him and punched him in the stomach in front of the police and on camera.
So we have a film of that?
We do.
Let me just check. Yes, I do have the cassette.
Good. That's... Now, interestingly, that caused a little bit of upset because obviously nowadays everyone wants to stand up for their rights or whatever you want to call them, and so everyone said to the police, can you arrest that man for assault and battery of that chap?
How did it work out?
The police just did nothing, and then it got a little bit excitable.
Well, I was there yesterday, and if I had to describe the face of the police officers, I would say three things. They looked terrified.
Absolutely.
They looked guilty of something, and they looked like they wished they had taken a week of vacation.
Well, you'll see that in the video, because as the day progressed, and there was just two cops there originally, and then it went to 4, and then by the time they'd played around it was, I think they had a dozen in the doorway, and then half a dozen over at the magistrate's court. And as the day progressed, I actually went and filmed all of the faces of them, because you could see they were absolutely terrified.
Would it be... Did you see that?
Again.
I don't think it'll work this time, but the quiet lady has a woman over there, codename Helen.
Yeah.
And so she's not working. I think we're safe. But have you heard the name Tom Crawford?
Rings a bell.
I think the court event was about him and an illegal eviction from his own home, and that's why I came over here from the United States, because in the United States, on one occasion where someone was evicted from their own home, it was me. And so I take this personally, and I don't think it's a matter of within the borders of the UK or the US. I think it's a global problem, and I'm not the brightest light in the bulb, but I think it's the central bankers that are foisting this evil upon us.
That sounds about right, and just so happens we're at outside the oldest inn in England.
I refer to that as the old trip to Jerusalem, and off the top of my head...
Ye olde trip to Jerusalem.
Oh, yes. Well, actually, ye olde trip to Jerusalem.
That's what I said.
And it's funny because they have a lot of uneven stones there, and when I was going in, I tripped a couple times, and when I was coming out after 19 pints, I found it easier to trip. But fortunately, I didn't fall, because had I fallen, I would have been injured on my trip from the United States to Nottingham to watch the court abuse, and I hope it turns out that I'm judging the court action wrong, because they haven't come up with their decision. I understand they email here.
Well, it's very rare that this happens, and this is only my opinion, of course, but I believe there was two reasons why the judge decided that. And let's not forget, of course, he was actually an hour and a half late turning up for the case. Now, of course, if we'd have been late, they'd have ruled against us immediately. However, because the judge decided that he was going to be late, I heard a rumour that somebody had to pull him off, little boy or something along those lines.
Well, it was Operation Crowbar, because as you're aware in Greece, if you want to separate the men from the boys, you have to use a crowbar. And so if you're suggesting that the judge is sympathetic to pedophiles, it would not surprise anybody in the colonies in the least.
I wouldn't think it would, no. So, my two reasons, this is only my opinion, of course, as to why he deferred judgment. The first one, I believe, would be he was probably a little bit worried that the amount of men and women that were outside would have stormed the building and gone to arrest him. And the reason I say this is when that chap got assaulted and battered by the G4S private security guard, everyone was upset and pointed out that the police that it was happened right in front of needed to arrest him, did nothing, and so they got a little bit agitated at that point and things pushed forward slightly. However, on the back of that, they allegedly did arrest the G4S guy and took him into custody. So I think the judge, when that happened, the judge actually heard the furore, got up and ran out of the court. And I think that's because he thought that we were storming the building to arrest him. And from what I gather of what went off on the actual day, they actually battered these high-powered £20,000 a day barristers into the ground. And I think the second reason he deferred judgment is because he's probably got to go and speak to his Freemason buddies and find out how he can get out of issuing in Tom's favour, because they were absolutely destroyed. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. It will be very interesting. For him to rule anything other than in Tom's favour would not just be a travesty of justice, it would show that there is, well, you cannot get justice or justice in the UK courts anymore.
I just took a text from one of my agents at Able Danger, Agent Swamper Mama, and I don't know if she has some way of eavesdropping on our conversation, but she says that this judge is probably got some ghost in his past or some ghost in his closets involving pedophilia, because she thinks, this is not me speaking, I would never be so unwise as sit here in the UK and suggest that your government and your entire justice system is ruled in favor of pedophiles, but she says, and not me, Agent Swamper Mama says, Field, be alert to the fact that the judge could be compromised in a pedophile honeypot, and that might be why he was so cowardly yesterday. And once again, not my words, but you told me, and she's telling me. Look at the text. Can you believe how many lines are there? Good thing I got a 5-bar signal, because I wouldn't have gotten this. But she suggests that not only this court, but all the courts in the UK now know that when they have a questionable proceeding in their building, they can expect to see more and more people from more and more countries, because we, the global commoners, know that what happens in the UK immediately skips over to the US, and from there it's like a spider web. Yep. And suddenly all of us global... Oh, I'm sorry, I've been wearing 2 pairs of glasses.
I never noticed.
No, what happens was I'm not drinking. I have to compensate for lack of double vision. I'm sorry. So that was an oversight on my part, and I hope it doesn't ruin our interview today. And speaking of interviews, I did 4 yesterday.
Yes.
And the only one that I'll allude to here on camera is on Monday of this coming week, which would be the 4th of May. The UK column is going to be putting... You've heard of the UK column?
Yes.
Yeah, they're down in Plymouth, England. They were here yesterday. Did you meet the Romanian gentleman or the woman from Alberta, Canada?
No.
Well, the group I was with in the hotel we were staying at, there were a lot of international people, some speaking and some being quiet. But Nottingham, which has some relationship to pedophilia, I'm not sure what, but it's getting the attention of a lot of, I don't want to use the term activist, I would just say common people from around the globe.
Men and women with good interests at heart.
Yes, and they want to have global children protected from predators. And, it's not just the UK. In 1989, you can Google this, the White House and the Vice President's residence, which is called the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C., had a pipeline of young boys from Lincoln, Nebraska, which is boys' home. It's an orphanage. Now, when you put children in care here in the U.K., are they being cared for, or are they sometimes being abused?
Absolutely not. I would say it was anything but care, and in certain what you refer to them as care homes, I refer to some of them as grooming parlours for the paedophiles to take the pick of the children, take them down to London, rape them, molest them, drug them, and then bring them back, just like Ken Clark did in the 80s.
I've heard of Ken Clark, and I think it's Clark with an E, is it not?
It is, correct.
That tells me something about where he's coming from, and of course your testimony right now tells me where he's going to. And I won't say where he's going to, but I'm suffering from single vision, so I have to put my corrective lenses back on. But Ken Clark, have you ever heard of a fellow named Ben?
Ben Fellows.
Oh, Ben Fellows, that's right. Is there a relationship between Ken Clark and Ben Fellows that you're aware of, either through conversations or reading?
In the 1980s, Ben Fellows worked on a programme on ITV, called The Cook Report. And The Cook Report was an investigative journalist that looked into corruption And he did a film where he looked into a paedophile ring in Parliament. This was in the 80s, I hasten to add, which is nearly 30 years ago now. And Ben Fellows at the time was 18, although when he went into Parliament he claimed to be 15, and he is a small chap, so he could quite easily pull off being a 15-year-old at 18. And while he was in Parliament, Ken Clarke actually groped him and molested him. This was on video, and photographs were taken, and what happened then, Carlton TV actually bought out Central TV, which is the local TV network for this particular area in the Midlands, and took over the Cook Report videos, put them in a Iron Mountain type place, which for safekeeping. Strangely enough, in this super safe place, the videos got burned.
You may not know this, but
yeah,
do you see that?
I see.
Okay, let's pretend like we don't see it, because we don't want to look nervous. In 1812, and then again later, Washington, D.C. was burned by some British military interests working either for the monarchy or the crown agents, if the crown agents were around back then. But of all the buildings they burned, there was only one building left standing, and I don't think you would know what it is, but when I tell you, it will not surprise you.
Okay.
It was the U.S. Patent Office. Yes, because see, England has, going back to 9/11 meaning September 11th of 1776, England has treated the United States as a colony, and I do understand where that comes from, because it was, to a large degree, it was industrialized Englishmen who went to help establish the nation of the United States of America, and they wanted return on that investment.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a hostile person or a vindictive person, but if I wanted to give them return on their investment, I'm not sure exactly what return I would give. But I don't think they don't need to have generational imprisonment. In other words, 330 million Americans owe nothing to the barons of the 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s, who came over to the United States, built our cities, built our railroads, built the oil industry. And even though all of that stuff is true, that does not give license to the United Kingdom to use us as slaves. And it's my opinion that since the 11th of September of 1776, when Admiral Howe...
If I can just... 11th of September, that would be 9/11 then. It's just, that date seems to pop up quite a lot.
I haven't thought of this in years, but 9/11, it's a Masonic symbol, first of all.
Yeah.
9/11 of 1776, Admiral Howe and George Washington had a little tiff. November 11th of 1864, General Sherman burnt down Atlanta, Georgia. On 9/11, 1961, the Queen of England sent representatives to William and Mary College in Virginia because they had just established a fraternity of young potential military career persons, and the name of the fraternity was the Queen's Own. And then, of course, on 9/11 of 2001...
before you go there, let's not forget 9/11, 1991.
Well, I'm a little foggy because I got jet lag, but does this have anything to do with George H.W. Bush?
Yes. He announced the New World Order was going to come in and take over the planet. And then, of course, 10 years later, brings us up to the date that you just mentioned, 9/11, 2001.
Not to challenge you, but in the interest of tit for tat, do you know where G.H.W. Bush slept on the evening of September 10th of 2001?
No.
He slept in the White House. Now, another question, do you have any idea where G.W. Bush was sleeping the night of 9/10, the night before 9/11?
The White House?
No, he was down in Sarasota, where the next day he was videotaped reading a goat story. Do you think that's... I hear an alarm. Do you think that's the infrared signal?
It could be. Let's see if we can... No, doesn't seem to work, so we'll just carry on, I guess.
Well, you know what?
Sarasota.
Thanks. You know what I thought that was? Are you familiar with Boeing uninterruptible autopilots?
Ah, that's what it was.
Yeah, see right here.
Yeah.
But I put the code in. In fact, can you read... Don't read the 66, but can you read the other four numbers?
5656.
Okay, I don't want to expose myself or who I work for, but when I was at the Naval Academy from 67 to 71, my Naval Academy code was 715656. And I'll leave it at that because I don't think we owe it to the people trying to destroy your country as well as my country in favor of the New World Order for them to figure out who I am or what I do. But G.W. Bush, one of the sons of President G.H.W. Bush, was in Sarasota, Florida, where he was ridiculed for reading a goat book upside down.
Yes.
But maybe the joke was on the ridiculers because are you familiar with maritime law?
I know a little bit about it.
Of course. In fact, do you know it? Okay, I've got another signal. We have about 90 seconds before it happens.
Okay.
Do you know that on the morning of 9/11, the attack that is alleged to be an attack upon the United States of America was actually an attack upon the Port Authority?
I did hear that the Port Authority actually owned or possessed the actual buildings in that area, and of course, if it would be the Port Authority, then that would not be actually on U.S. soil.
So the attack of 9/11 was not against the United States; it was against the Port Authority and their assets.
Yeah.
Well, that ties into why President G.H.W. Bush was in the White House the night of 9/10 going into 9/11, and why President G.W. Bush was in Sarasota, and more importantly, why was Bill Clinton in Australia, and what was his relation to Kevin Rudd, R-U-D-D, Andrew Peacock, and Allison Bone? And I can answer those, but we only, according to this, 61 seconds left.
Okay.
And why was Al Gore in Austria? And I think the reason Al Gore was in Austria, Bill Clinton was in Australia, G.W. Bush was reading a ghost story, and the old man was at the White House, I think it's because of
I see.
Plan 71. Are you familiar with Plan 71?
I heard rumours about it.
Well, that was the 30-year advance warning of Operation Belvedere's. Now, have you ever heard of Operation Belvedere's?
Again, vaguely.
It was up in Telford, England, and it was about 2 months ago, and it involved a Russian. But now we're down to 41 seconds, so in the interest of safety, I think we should get out of here and get back to the pub. Do you have any problem with that?
Absolutely not. Pub time it is.
Well, should we end this with a 3, 2, 1 in Spanish or French?
German.
Do you speak German?
9. 9.
Oh, 9. Okay. 911. We better wrap it up because we're down to 28 seconds. And
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, I'm out of here.
We're locked. We're locked. Let's go.
Okay, well, do we have to take the camera? You want? Don't we have to take it and shut it off?
That
They locked her up in Sodexo private prison, Peterborough. There is no evidence against her. They locked her up to silence her because she dared come forward and challenge institutional paedophilia. Please come and sign the petition to help release Melody Shaw.
They're not concealing well.
I'm an anti-slavery advocate and a defender of fundamental freedoms under the United Nations Declaration of 1998. Are you?
Right. I'm not going to discuss legal technicalities or
Well,
anything
actually,
with you.
under that declaration, you have a duty to not just recognise, but to support and back me up.
Right, I'm not going to discuss legal technicalities with you.
Well, it's not legal
you-
it's a declaration which you are bound, duty-bound to actually represent and defend me on this issue.
I'm not going to discuss any legal technicalities with you. If you've got a specific complaint,
No,
give me details of any
it's just a
complaint.
question. Like I said, I'm a defender of fundamental freedoms and an anti-slavery advocate. Now, you're either for it or against it.
Right, I'm not going to discuss any legal
that-
technicalities with you.
Okay, then. I will make the inference from that you're either against it or for it. If you're for it, great, I love you. If you're against it, that means you're for slavery and against fundamental freedoms. I understand you can't comment on that point, and I'm going to leave it at that, if that's okay.
Yeah, we are obviously bound by the European Convention on Human Rights and anything that's contained within that, the right to be free from torture, etc. But I'm not going to discuss any legal technical points with you. If there is a specific complaint...
I fully understand what you're saying. Forgive me for putting you on the spot there, but I just...
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Free TV, in association with GetOutOfDebtFree.org.